Welcome back to Go Figure. Today we are on lesson 120 of Math 5, decimal multiplication using placeholder zeros. Please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Here's a warm-up problem, a couple warm-up problems. Go ahead and solve these and then we'll check your answers. Okay, so the first one, remember this is what we learned in our last lesson. When we have a decimal that we're multiplying by, we can think of this as first multiply as if they were whole numbers. So we could do this as 34 times 2. And that'll give us 8 in our ones place and 6 in our tens place. And then we count how many decimals in our factors here are behind, or how many digits are behind the decimal point. So here we just have one digit behind the decimal point and none here. So our answer is going to have one digit after the decimal point, to the right of the decimal point. So our answer here is 6.8. And in the next one, again, we're going to multiply as if these were whole numbers first, and then we'll put in our decimal points after. So 2 times 5 is 10. Carry the 1. 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 is 3. Then we have a placeholder 0 there. 1 times 5 is 5. 1 times 1 is 1. Add these together. We have 180. Now, to where we put the decimal point, we look at our factors and we have 1 digit and 2 digits. So 2 digits after the decimal point. So our answer needs to have 2 digits after the decimal point. So we start from the right and count over 2 spots and put our decimal point right there. So our answer there is 1.80, or 1 8/10. So today we're going to discover placeholder zeros that we'll use when there aren't enough digits in the product. So here's the situation. We need to multiply 0.04 times 0.3, or 4/100 times 3/10. So using the rule that we already know, 4 times 3 equals 12, but how many decimal places are there? And where does the decimal point need to go? So think about it. So 4/100 has 2 places after the decimal point, and 3/10 has 1 place after the decimal point. So that's a total of 3 places, 1, 2, 3. But 12, the answer that we got, only has 2 digits. So we need a 0 to fill a place that has no digit yet, and that is called a placeholder 0. So when the product doesn't have enough digits, after multiplying the whole numbers, if the product, the answer, has fewer digits than the decimal places that we need to add zeros on the left to fill the gap. So I'm going to just show a case of multiplying whole numbers, for example, without decimals. So like 3 times 3 we know is 9, right? We have no problems with decimal points there. And then what we learned yesterday, let's say we're doing 3 times 0.3. Okay, we multiply them like they're whole numbers. 3 times 3 is 9. And we know we need 1 digit behind the decimal point. So we're going to put a decimal point there. And it's always a good idea to put a leading 0 there in the ones place, just so we know that there's no whole number. Okay, so there's 1 digit. And then what we're doing here, placeholder zeros, let's say we have 0.3 times 0.3. Well, again, we multiply as if they're whole numbers. 3 times 3 is 9. But again, we see we have 1 digit and another digit, so 2 digits after the decimal point. And we only have 1 digit in our answer. So we need to add a 0 in front of it so that we can put our decimal point, and we'll have 2 digits after our decimal point. And again, we can put a 0 here in the ones place to represent no whole numbers. So let's work through this. 4/100ths times 3/10ths. So step one is we're going to count the decimal places. We have 2 places in 4/100ths, and we have 1 place in 3/10ths, right? So we have 1, 2, 3 places total after the decimal point. Step 2, we're going to multiply the whole numbers. So we're going to do 4 times 3, which equals 12. That's our raw product. It's 2 digits long, and that's just what we get is if we multiply them as whole numbers. Then we're going to compare the digits to the places. So we need 3 places, right? That's what we learned from step 1. We need 3 places behind our decimal point, but we only have 2 digits. So we need to add 1 0. So we're going to insert a placeholder 0. So we're going to rewrite that 12 as 0, 1, 2, adding 1 placeholder 0, and then we can place the decimal point. So then our final answer is 0.012, or 12 thousandths. So just to check, when you're doing these problems and you're wondering, do I need a placeholder here? Ask yourself 2 questions after multiplying the whole numbers. First, you want to ask, how many decimal places do I need? You want to count the decimal digits in both the factors combined, the numbers that you're multiplying. And then the second question is, how many digits does my product have, my answer? You want to count the digits in your whole number answer. And then, if there are places needed, if the places needed are greater than the digits in the product, then the number of placeholder zeros you need is going to be the places needed minus the digits in the product. So going back to when we were multiplying 3/10ths times 3/10ths, and our answer was 9/100ths, we can think of these decimals as fractions just to get a better idea of what this looks like. So 3/10ths is 3/10 as a fraction, and then multiplied by 3/10ths, right? And if we figure this out as a fraction, we end up with 9/100. And so that's why our answer is going to be the same answer, 9/100ths. And that's what we have here as a decimal, 9/100ths. So just another way to think about when we're multiplying by decimals. Okay, here's another example. 5/100ths times 4/10ths. So first question, the places needed. We have 2 here and 1 here. So 3 places are needed. And then we multiply our whole numbers. 5 times 4 is 20, which has 2 digits. So notice we have 3 places needed, but only 2 digits in our answer. So we're going to need 1 more place. So we're going to use 1 placeholder 0. So we'll rewrite that as 0, 2, 0. And then we can place our decimal point 3 positions from the right. So if we started at the right, count 1, 2, 3, and that's where our decimal point goes. And then, of course, this simplifies a little bit. We don't necessarily need that ending 0, so we can simplify that to 0.02. All right, here, first thing we want to ask ourselves is how many places do we need after our decimal point? So let's just count them 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, places needed are 4 because we have 3 here and 1 here. Step 2, multiply the whole numbers. So 3 times 2 is 6. So that's only 1 digit here, but we need 4 digits. So we're going to need, how many placeholder zeros are we going to need? We're going to need 3 placeholder zeros because this is 1 digit and we needed 4. So to build our answer, we're going to put that 6 because 3 times 2 is 6. and then we're going to add 3 placeholder zeros to the left of it, and then put our decimal point. And then we'll fill in a 0 for our ones place. Okay, here's another one. The first question we asked, how many places are needed? Let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we need 4 places in our answer behind the decimal point. And then we multiply our whole numbers. So 12 times 5. And that is a math fact that we should know. 12 times 5 is 60. So we have 2 digits in our answer. So I'm going to write 2 digits over here. 2 digits. And we needed 4. So comparing those in step 3, we need 4. We only have 2. So we're going to need 2 more digits in our answer. So we're going to build our answer. So we need 2 placeholder zeros. Let's put 2 placeholder zeros, and then our answer when we multiply it as if they were whole numbers, 60. And then we can put our decimal point right in front of those placeholders. And then again, this simplifies because we don't need this 0 at the end. It doesn't change the value of the number if we lose that 0. So we're just going to drop that 0 as our final answer. Our final answer is 6 thousandths. All right, now here's a chance for you to try. Go ahead and try these, and you can even put your answers down in the quiz below this video. And here's a little hint to get, let me go back. Here's a little hint to get you started. 6 times 5 equals 30. So, and you want to ask yourself, how many decimal places do you need? And does 30 have enough digits? Okay, so again, you already had your hint here. So we're going to count how many digits we need. 1, 2, 3 digits. And then we're going to multiply our numbers as if they were whole numbers. So 6 times 5 is 30. We need 3 digits behind our decimal point, but we only have 2. So let's add a placeholder 0 there, put our decimal point in front, and a 0 in our ones place. And to simplify, we can even drop that final 0, and we're just left with 3 hundredths. All right, here's another one. Go ahead and figure this one out. Put your answer in the quiz below, and then we'll check your answer. Okay, so here's a hint. 7 times 4 is 28. How many places do we need? Well, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. We need 4 places. Our answer only has 2. So we're going to need 2 more places. We're going to need 2 zeros as placeholders. And then our decimal point and a leading 0 in our ones place. And last one. Again, go ahead and solve this real quick. Put your answer in the quiz below, and then we'll check your answer. Okay, how many decimal places do we need? 1, 2, 3, 4. We need 4 decimal places in our answer. Let's multiply 2 times 3 is 6. So we only have 1 digit right now. We need 4, so that means we're going to have to add 3 placeholder zeros and then put our decimal point. And there's our final answer. Okay, so the main idea here, when your answer doesn't have enough digits, we need to add placeholder zeros on the left. And the formula for figuring out how many you need is just take the total number of decimal places that we need and subtract the number of digits that we have in our whole number answer. And coming up next, we'll have lesson 121, decimal multiplication by 10, 100, and 1,000. So make sure that you can multiply decimals with and without placeholder zeros. And go ahead and complete your lesson for 120 before we get to the next lesson. All right, have a good day. We'll see you next time.